In the unforgiving world of pro wrestling, where only the truly exceptional earn legendary status, not every talent receives the spotlight they deserve. WCW was once the birthplace of countless major stars, but it was also the graveyard of many careers, buried under backstage politics and half-finished storylines. Some wrestlers had everything: the look, the skills, the charisma, yet they remained stuck in the mid-card, never given the push to reach the top. These are the WCW wrestlers who should have become much bigger stars. Number 1. Saturn. Fans still laugh when they remember Perry Saturn's bizarre obsession with a mop, one of the strangest gimmicks ever seen on TV. But don't let that fool you. Before being reduced to comic relief, Saturn was widely regarded as a serious contender for the world title. With a rugged, muscular build and a highly versatile fighting style, Saturn was a rare performer who could adapt to any form of wrestling. He could go toe-to-toe with hard-hitting brawlers in Japanese strong style, or suddenly take flight like a cruiserweight. His talent first shined in ECW, teaming with John Kronus as the Eliminators, where they dominated the tag division before moving on to WCW. Once in WCW, Saturn quickly stood out as a member of Raven's flock, often being the most impressive part of the group. After splitting due to internal tensions, he tried his luck as a singles competitor, excelled in tag matches, and later joined the Revolution alongside other gifted wrestlers. He gave his all every time he stepped in the ring, but management never truly saw him as more than a mid-carder. Backstage politics, broken storylines, and being constantly stuck in the mid-card drained Saturn's momentum. Eventually, he joined forces with Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and Dean Malenko to walk away from WCW and sign with WWE. Looking back, even though he held both the tag team and television championships, Perry Saturn clearly had the tools to reach much greater heights, but WCW never gave him the chance. Number 2. Scott Norton. In a world where raw power and dominance could turn a name into a legend, Scott "Flash" Norton had nearly everything. With his massive physique and freakish strength, Norton was already a renowned arm wrestling champion across the US before stepping into the pro wrestling ring. Entering WCW in the 90s, he seemed destined to be a main eventer, perhaps even a world champion. But amid WCW's star-studded roster, he lacked one key ingredient: standout charisma and a persona that could ignite American crowds. Ironically, that wasn't an issue in Japan. While WCW treated him as a supporting act, New Japan Pro Wrestling elevated Norton to superstar status. In the US, he floated in supporting roles, teaming with Ice Train, then forming Vicious and Delicious with Buff Bagwell under the NWO banner. But in Japan, he was presented as a destructive force. His WCW run had flashes, especially in battles with the Steiner brothers, but he was never lifted beyond the mid-card. Vicious and Delicious never captured the tag belts, leaving Norton overshadowed within the massive NWO. Even with Eric Bischoff backing him, Norton's commitments to New Japan stopped WCW from giving him a bigger push. He remained loyal to his Japanese schedule, joining NWO Japan and consistently being booked as a top star, winning the IWGP Heavyweight Championship twice, a rare feat for an American at that time. In truth, the WCW World or US titles were within his reach, but Norton chose a different path, one that ultimately paid off. While many of his peers faded when WCW collapsed, Scott Norton continued thriving in Japan, solidifying himself as one of the most successful foreign wrestlers in NJPW history. Number 3. Hugh Morrus. The name Hugh Morrus might sound like a joke, but there was nothing funny about the man behind it. Bill DeMott, his real name, was a powerhouse, a big, solid wrestler with surprising agility. At a time when lumbering giants dominated the ring, DeMott could climb the ropes, twist in midair, and land with a picture-perfect moonsault, something that left fans stunned when he first appeared in WCW in 1995. His rare combination of size and aerial ability caught the eye of Booker Kevin Sullivan, earning him a spot in the villainous Dungeon of Doom, one of the company's major factions. In the beginning, Hugh Morrus appeared regularly on Nitro, often involved in big angles. But once the Dungeon of Doom dissolved, his momentum started to slip. His role shrank until he was little more than a filler on weekly shows. Ironically, his most memorable moment came in a losing effort. He was the very first opponent Bill Goldberg ever faced on WCW television. And we all know how that story played out. Goldberg skyrocketed, while Morrus stayed put. Under Vince Russo's direction, WCW tried to repackage him with a dreadful gimmick, renaming him Hugh G. Rection and putting him in charge of the Misfits in action. The over-the-top joke name made it nearly impossible for fans to take him seriously, even though Benoit himself remained a reliable performer. He did get more TV time and even won the United States Championship twice, but that was during WCW's dying days, when ratings were collapsing and titles meant little. After WCW folded, Benoit moved to WWE, but injuries and a dated image limited him to being little more than cannon fodder for younger talent. Before long, he retired from in-ring competition. Sadly, his lasting legacy wasn't his impressive moonsaults, but the controversy surrounding allegations of bullying trainees during his time as a coach, an unfortunate and bitter end to a career that could have been much greater. Number 4. Crowbar. Devon Storm, a familiar name on the independent circuit during the 90s, saw WCW as his chance at a breakthrough, though it came just as the company was spiraling downward. After sporadic appearances, Storm reinvented himself with a brand new persona, Crowbar. Quirky, energetic, and chaotic, the character fit perfectly into WCW's turbulent atmosphere at the time. Alongside Daphne, Crowbar quickly stood out, becoming a regular face on TV and injecting much-needed life into WCW's gloomy final stretch. In less than a year, Crowbar captured the hardcore, cruiserweight, and tag team championships, a feat few managed in such a short span. Granted, this was during Vince Russo's chaotic booking, when titles changed hands so often fans could barely keep track, but it doesn't change the fact that Crowbar maximized every opportunity to make an impression. In the ring, he showed a fearless style, willing to put his body on the line to deliver thrilling matches, often outshining the bizarre storylines he was placed in. Yet all his talent and effort couldn't save a sinking ship. As WCW crumbled under poor decisions, Crowbar became just another bright spot buried under the rubble. He was released shortly before WWE purchased the company, and instead of chasing the mainstream scene, Devon Storm chose to return to the independents while also dedicating himself to a career in physical therapy, a profession he continues to this day. Crowbar may never have been world championship material, but with his dedication and unique style, he certainly deserved a bigger opportunity, especially at a time when WWE desperately needed fresh faces after acquiring WCW. Number 5. Norman Smiley. Norman Smiley is the perfect example of someone who reached the top in one market but couldn't replicate that success in the land of the giants. Before arriving in WCW, Smiley built a strong reputation in Mexico under the name Black Magic. He wasn't just a regular in CMLL, he even held their heavyweight title, a rare achievement for a foreigner. What was meant to be a one-month stay, thanks to Kanyon's invitation, turned into 5 years as Smiley's talent and adaptability won over both promoters and fans. During that time, he honed his technique, developed his performance style, and built a loyal following. But in WCW, where he arrived through a talent exchange, Smiley struggled to stand out at first. Despite being a technically sound wrestler, he was mostly slotted as an enhancement talent, a reliable worker who lost but made his opponents look stronger. His career seemed destined to remain in the shadows, until an unexpected twist, the Big Wiggle. During matches, Smiley began adding a goofy hip-shaking dance after his moves, and it quickly caught on with the crowd. Practically overnight, he went from invisible to one of the most entertaining mid-card acts, all thanks to that spontaneous charisma. Though he was never seen as world championship material, Smiley brought entertainment wherever he appeared, whether in fast-paced cruiserweight matches or chaotic hardcore brawls. With his solid technical base, decent size, and vast international experience, Smiley deserved a higher spot on the card rather than being stuck in the mid-tier. Even so, he found his true calling, becoming a coach at the WWE Performance Center, where he passes down his knowledge, and, of course, the Big Wiggle, to the next generation, leaving behind a legacy that's both unique and unmistakable. Number 6. Kanyon. Who better than Kanyon? That catchphrase wasn't just a question, it was a statement. Very few could match him. Chris Kanyon embodied relentless perseverance, a wrestler constantly experimenting and reinventing himself to carve out a place in WCW's crowded landscape. At first, he appeared in the forgettable tag team Men at Work, playing a construction worker gimmick that quickly fizzled. But then Kanyon transformed into Mortis, a masked warrior inspired by Mortal Kombat, and for the first time, fans truly took notice. He didn't stop there. Kanyon kept evolving, joining Raven's flock, then later becoming part of the Jersey Triad alongside Diamond Dallas Page and Bam Bam Bigelow. Each reinvention showcased his adaptability, proving he could stand out in any environment. Known as the innovator of offense, Kanyon constantly introduced new moves, always pushing boundaries. He was fearless in the ring, willing to take extreme risks just to deliver moments fans would never forget, even if it meant being hurled off the top of a 3-tier cage onto steel. Kanyon had nearly everything it took to be a star: the look, the skills, the experience, and the drive. But due to WCW's chaotic management and lack of consistent support, he never broke through the glass ceiling to main event status. Still, his legacy remains: great matches, memorable highlights, and a handful of tag team championship runs. Sadly, with the right push and direction, his career might have been legendary instead of stopping just short. Number 7. Alex Wright. There are prodigies, there are wonder kids, and then there was Das Wunderkind. Alex Wright, the son of a respected European wrestler, grew up immersed in the sport and began his career at just 16. Determined not to rely on his father's name, he traveled to Japan to sharpen his craft, gaining both confidence and skill. By 18, barely old enough to drink, Wright was signed by WCW, a rare opportunity for such a young foreign talent. The lanky teenager quickly impressed, holding his own against names like Jean-Paul Levesque, later Triple H, and Brian Pillman, forcing fans and management alike to take notice. Tall, athletic, good-looking, and exceptionally gifted, Wright had all the tools to succeed. Even Ric Flair personally backed him, seeing Wright as a long-term project. Yet his biggest obstacle was his gimmick. Playing the German kid obsessed with techno music, Wright's character was flashy but shallow, lacking depth or emotion. In the midst of WCW's booming cruiserweight division, a stronger persona could have helped him ride that wave into stardom. To his credit, Wright never stopped working hard. He captured both the cruiserweight and television championships, proving his worth. Later, he reinvented himself again as Berlin, a shaved-head, dark-clad character with an industrial theme and a bodyguard named The Wall. On paper, it had potential, but it came too late, when WCW was already collapsing and Berlin sank into obscurity. In the end, Alex Wright remained stuck in the mid-card, often paired with Disco Inferno during WCW's final gloomy days. Once seen as a future star, the prodigy never reached the heights his talent promised. Number 8. Brad Armstrong. In professional wrestling, pure talent alone isn't always enough to become a superstar, and Brad Armstrong was the most painful example of that truth. Technically outstanding, smooth as silk, and able to elevate anyone he worked with, Brad was the kind of wrestler who made every opponent look better. Backstage, he was beloved and respected, viewed as a ring general who could carry entire matches while making it all look effortless. But his greatest strength turned into a curse. Instead of being built as a star, Brad was typecast as the guy who makes others shine. Worse, WCW saddled him with a string of goofy, uninspired gimmicks that killed his credibility. Arachnoman, a knockoff superhero, the Candyman, tossing candy to fans, Fantasia, and later Buzzkill, a parody of his brother's persona. These characters weren't just ineffective, they made it impossible for audiences to take him seriously. He was also never given meaningful storylines or a strong manager to elevate his profile. Without compelling narratives or standout presentation, Brad faded into the background, like a hidden gem left gathering dust, despite always delivering quality matches. Though he spent over a decade in WCW, Armstrong never got the push he needed to break free from the reliable worker label and enter the superstar tier. He had the ability, the respect, and the experience. What he lacked was the right opportunity at the right time. Sadly, that chance never came. Number 9. Brian Clark. It might sound funny now, but in the late 90s, Brian Clark, under the persona of Wrath, was once seen as a breakout star in WCW. Before that, he was known as Atom Bomb in WWE, where he had the look and raw power but was eventually pushed down the card and faded out. After quietly leaving WWE, Clark re-emerged in 1997 in WCW, determined to rewrite his story. This time, he became Wrath, teaming with Mortis, Glacier, and Ernest Miller in a fantasy-driven group inspired by the booming Mortal Kombat craze. The stable had flashy visuals and a cinematic vibe, but it never received proper backing and soon faded. Once the group dissolved, Wrath reinvented himself. Dropping the colorful armor, he built an image as a massive powerhouse, crushing opponents with his devastating pump-handle slam and racking up an impressive undefeated streak on Nitro. According to Clark, the original plan was for Wrath to eventually clash with Goldberg in an undefeated versus undefeated showdown, a dream match that could have propelled him into superstardom. But this was WCW, where logic often took a back seat. Instead, Wrath was abruptly booked to lose to Kevin Nash on Nitro, purely to set Nash up for his feud with Goldberg at Starrcade. That single loss killed Wrath's momentum instantly. Later, he revived his career somewhat by teaming with Bryan Adams to form the muscle-bound duo Chronic, yes, spelled with 2 Ks. But the lingering feeling was always the same. Wrath was a monster who got close to the spotlight but never truly got to shine. Number 10. Lash LeRoux. Some wrestlers step into the ring and immediately capture the crowd's attention, only to be forgotten just as quickly. Lash LeRoux fits that description perfectly. With his fiery red hair, upbeat charisma, and fun-loving personality, he seemed tailor-made to be the youthful face of WCW in the late 90s. LeRoux came up through WCW's power plant system, impressing early with his agility, crisp execution, and infectious energy. His matches, especially in the fiercely competitive cruiserweight division, were always exciting. But what he lacked was the most important thing: clear direction from management. He was briefly pushed as the Cajun sensation, playing off his southern roots, but the half-baked gimmick and lack of serious booking caused it to fizzle quickly. Eventually, he drifted into the Misfits in Action Stable as Corporal Cajun, a light-hearted, comedic role that entertained fans but kept him stuck far from the top. Although he remained popular with audiences, LeRoux never broke through the mid-card ceiling. He had the likable look, the in-ring skills, and the energy, but all of it was lost in WCW's chaos during its dying years. With stronger character work and consistent backing, Lash LeRoux could have been a genuine star, instead of just another forgotten name. Number 11. Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome stormed into WCW like a force of nature. Massive, muscular, and shockingly agile for someone nearly 7 feet tall. In ECW, he was a dominant world champion, famous for his brutal table-breaking powerbombs and high-risk dives. When he arrived in WCW in 2000, many believed he was about to be built as the next unstoppable heavyweight monster. At first, it seemed like that was the plan. He beat established names, showcased incredible athleticism, and had fans buzzing about his potential. But then WCW did what WCW always did: they sabotaged him with ridiculous gimmicks. Awesome was rebranded as the Fat Chick Thriller, and later, That 70s Guy, characters that instantly destroyed his aura as a terrifying powerhouse. Instead of the feared destroyer he was meant to be, Mike Awesome became a punchline, lost in goofy storylines and backstage politics. He later tried to rebuild momentum by joining Team Canada, but the damage to his image was already done. When WCW folded, Awesome moved to WWE, but he never recaptured his ECW dominance. It was a wasted opportunity. With his size, strength, and shockingly dynamic skill set, Mike Awesome should have been one of WCW's biggest stars. Instead, the company squandered his potential. Number 12. Billy Kidman. Billy Kidman is living proof that talent alone isn't always enough to reach the top. In WCW's golden era, where giants ruled the spotlight, Kidman stood out as a scrappy underdog with the heart of a lion. Small in stature but lightning quick, he became one of the brightest stars of the cruiserweight wave. His shooting star press regularly brought fans to their feet, and he almost always delivered one of the best matches on any given night. Kidman first appeared as part of Raven's flock, playing a brooding, dark character. But it was when he broke out on his own that he truly shined. His matches with Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrera, and Psychosis cemented him as a pillar of the lightweight division. He even captured multiple cruiserweight and tag team titles, proving he wasn't just a small guy who could fly, but a tough, resilient fighter. The problem was WCW never saw him as a true main eventer. He was boxed in as a cruiserweight, despite clearly having the skills to go further. Even when WCW was desperate for young new faces, Kidman was never given that real chance. And when the company collapsed, his WWE run never reached the heights his potential once promised. With proper investment, Billy Kidman could have become the symbol of a new generation. Instead, he's remembered as the best flyer WCW never used the right way. Number 13. Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko was known as the man of 1,000 holds, and probably had even more than that. He wasn't flashy, didn't cut wild promos, and didn't wear colorful costumes, but every time he stepped into the ring, Malenko delivered a masterclass in precision and cold-blooded execution. In a business built on spectacle, he let his wrestling do the talking. In WCW, Malenko was a cornerstone of the cruiserweight division, consistently putting on show stealers with Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Jericho. He won multiple cruiserweight and U.S. titles, showcasing machine-like accuracy and unshakable toughness. With his technical brilliance, stamina, and ability to elevate anyone he faced, Malenko deserved to be pushed far beyond the mid-card. Instead, WCW only saw him as a mechanic, someone to make others look good. Even as a member of the legendary Four Horsemen, he was rarely given strong storylines or chances at top titles. Meanwhile, bigger men with half his skill were constantly vaulted into main events. Malenko was stuck in place, his enormous potential left untapped. Had WCW taken a risk, Dean Malenko could have been remembered as one of the defining stars of his era, a wrestling purist who brought technical mastery to the forefront. Instead, he's remembered as one of the most wasted talents in WCW history. Number 14. Sean O'Haire. In WCW's final years, Sean O'Haire was seen as one of the company's rare hidden gems, a wrestler who had all the tools to become a major star. Standing 6 feet 6 inches, ripped, with movie star looks, and shockingly agile for his size, O'Haire stood out from the pack. Teaming with Chuck Palumbo, he captured multiple tag team championships and was hyped as part of the new generation meant to carry WCW into the future as the company crumbled. But backstage chaos and WCW's looming collapse derailed those plans. When WWE bought WCW in 2001, it seemed like his big break had arrived. Instead, it was the opposite. WWE showed little interest in investing in WCW's younger talent, and O'Haire was relegated to minor roles, shallow storylines, and eventually faded from view. His mysterious devil's advocate gimmick had real promise, but WWE abandoned it after only a few weeks, leaving him directionless. Sean O'Haire had everything needed to become a top star: power, charisma, and uniqueness. But both WCW and WWE failed to capitalize on him. For many fans, O'Haire remains one of WCW's most wasted talents, someone who could have been a legend if only he had been given the right opportunity at the right time. Number 15. Booker T. It might sound strange to see Booker T, a man who went on to become a world champion, on this list, but the truth is WCW should have pulled the trigger on him much earlier. Booker had everything needed to be a top star: an impressive look, solid in-ring skills, strong mic ability, and natural charisma. As part of Harlem Heat, he and Stevie Ray were one of WCW's most successful tag teams ever, but Booker always stood out with his speed, power, and knack for delivering big moments. Yet for years, WCW kept him locked in the tag division, refusing to give him a real singles push. Only when the company was already crumbling did Booker finally get his shot as a solo competitor. He quickly proved himself, winning multiple TV titles and eventually capturing the World Championship, but by then, it was too late. The problem wasn't Booker's ability, it was WCW's reluctance to give him the opportunity at the right time. Had they elevated him to singles competition in the mid-90s, Booker could have been WCW's first true black main event star, ushering in a new era for the company. Instead, his rise only happened when WCW was already on its last legs. Booker T ultimately became a legend, but it should have happened much sooner, and that failure rests squarely on WCW. Number 16. Chris Benoit. Before becoming a world champion, Chris Benoit was the embodiment of resilience in WCW. Smaller than most of his opponents, he made up for it with relentless intensity and near-flawless technique. With his icy stare, thunderous chops, and machine-like precision German suplexes, Benoit demanded the audience's attention every time he stepped into the ring. Despite being recognized as one of the best wrestlers on the planet, Benoit was stuck in the mid-card far too long. He was part of the Four Horsemen and delivered classics against Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Fit Finlay, yet WCW still refused to elevate him to true main event status. Management favored bigger, flashier stars, while Benoit was dismissed as just a work-rate guy who didn't belong in top storylines. It wasn't until WCW's dying days that Benoit was finally given the World Championship, a reward that came far too late. Almost immediately after, he left the company alongside Saturn, Malenko, and Guerrero in search of a brighter future. In truth, Benoit should have been WCW champion years earlier, when his skill and influence were at their peak. Had WCW recognized that potential sooner, Chris Benoit might have become a cornerstone capable of helping the company survive its decline, instead of serving as another painful reminder of their lack of vision. These were some of WCW's most wasted talents. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more great stories from the world of wrestling.